You're very welcomed to the launch of the project Beuys On. My name is Peter Anders. I'm the director of the Goethe-Institut in Tokyo. What a controversial figure is this Joseph Beuys, whose centenary in 2021 does not just raise huge attention in Germany, but also in other parts of the world. A member of the Hitler Youth, revolutionary of academic life, shamanist, and founding member of the Green Party, he still evokes huge controversy and influence in the contemporary art world. How to overcome trauma without bypassing the pain and the guilt. How to reconcile with one's own history and how to combine art and society are, for example, the main stimuli of Beuys' oeuvre for Bulgarian artist Luceza Bujagiev. Of course, one can reflect on Beuys from a personal perspective, but how to relate once your biography is far from being connected neither through personal relations nor through cultural context. For us, the Goethe-Institut in Japan, it was therefore essential to leave Western perspectives behind, to abandon any kind of glorification, but make profit out of the centenary for our peers in Japan and the region. Luckily enough, Beuys visited Japan once, and indeed he left behind some remarkable memories of some of the most respected Japanese artists of his generation. But we were more interested in asking how the younger generation could relate to Beuys. Those who never met him maybe have not even heard about him. How does these young artists, curators, scholars are approaching Beuys? We are promoting a kind of cultural appropriation of a Western artist, thwarting Beuys' own appropriation of cultural sphere, as for example in his concept of Eurasia. Under the artistic direction of Misuki Takahashi, we are launching today a process of trans-regional discourse on different aspects of Beuys' work, reinterpreted by Asian associates to the project entitled Beuys On. The title in itself refers to the corona situation in which on and offline events are already established means. And yes, COVID-19 forced us to rethink the parameters of international exchange. The use of the internet and digital platforms, as those we are using today, are common ground for debate. But still, we are aware of the lack of physicality, which is constitutive for experiencing art. Either way, today we are as much challenged as former generations in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when Joseph Beuys questioned the system of the arts, its conditions, its market, its sustainability. I hope that Beuys On can offer some fresh, innovative, sometimes even radical answers to our world in question today. Before I invite our artistic director to introduce the project, followed by the presentations of our associates, it's time to thank you all, guys, for who you are working hard for the launch of our project and the website beuys-on-off.com. We were overwhelmed by your enthusiasm, your dedication, your critical approach, and your creativity. Thanks for the Arts Council Tokyo for their support. Thanks to my team at the Goethe-Institut Tokyo, to Ulrike-san, Hana, Makiko, and all the others. Thanks to Kaoru, and special thanks to Misuki for your in-depth guidance and the wonderful work you have done to make this happen. And without this, it's now a huge pleasure to hand over to you, Misuki. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your opening remark and introduction, Peter. Hello, everyone. I'm Misuki Takahashi. I'm the artist director of Beuys On. Before introducing Beuys On, I want to briefly talk why I was invited to this project. In 2009, I curated the exhibition entitled 8 Days, Beuys in Japan in Contemporary Art Gallery at Tower Mito. So this is the catalog which we published. Sorry, so this is only in Japanese. We discovered the documentary footage of Joseph Beuys' trip in Tokyo in 1984. The exhibition was conceived to revisit Joseph Beuys' impact on Japanese art scene. Since Japan was the only country in Asia where Beuys could visit in his lifetime, the exhibition could also present the interaction between Beuys and the Japanese artists, critics, philosophers, as well as Japanese media. In conjunction with the exhibition, I also organized a symposium, inviting the two curators from Germany, Leonard Bloch and Eugene Blume, who have deep knowledge on the Joseph Beuys. And I also invited Japanese scholars, curators, and artists from Japan, and discussed the significance of Joseph Beuys' artistic practices. Because of this experience, I assume I was invited to conceptualize Beuys On from the Goethe Institute, Tokyo. At the very first meeting with Peter and Ulrike, they're serving for the Goethe-Institut, Tokyo, I was informed that the title of the project was Beuys On, and the main stage of the project should be the online in response to COVID-19 situation. In addition, I was asked to consider to address Eurasia, which was a kind of utopian visionary space for Joseph Beuys to overarch East and West and other diverse dichotomies. Posing the question, what if Beuys were alive in the internet age? I made a plan for Beuys On. From the very early stage, we agreed that Beuys On should not be the project to merely place Joseph Beuys. Rather, we decided making Beuys On an experimental cross-disciplinary platform to critically reinterpret Joseph Beuys and to update his multifaceted practices to address contemporary urgencies from Asia and Eurasia. On Beuys On website, we will regularly publish interviews, journals, pedagogical text, and sound, as well as host symposia, discussions, sharings, performances, and puppet theater. All contents are conceived as critical responses to Beuys from the associate with the connection of Asia and Eurasia. Each presented program has the nature of co-learning or unlearning based on the idea of collaboration, communication, and compassion. In this way, Beuys On can be regarded as a contemporary form of the Free International University, which Beuys co-founded in 1973 with his associate as a place for research, work, and communication. Having said that, Beuys On consists of two main projects. One is a Free International University 2.0. For FIU 2.0, lead associates Dominic Chen, Center for Reproductive Labor, Gunara Kasma-Labor, and Muratbek Jumariev, Taeun Choi, and Junyon Ma have designed the courses and the programs to discuss that assigned topic. Economy and ecology programs are particularly conceived to embody their critical idea through the practical action to change the society. For Eurasia program, Dominic attempted to entail Beuys's concept of the Eurasia by building an artistic network across Eurasia, critically interrogating European vision of Eurasia in the West. Cherry and Ma will organize a workshop entitled the Summer School of Unlearning with students from Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Korea, and Japan for questioning how we learn and what we learn or unlearn through discussions. Second project is called Sound of Eurasia. DJ Sniff will send 3 vinyl records with minimum instructions to sound artists and musicians to interact with, and then asking each to send on the records by mail to other people in different cities and towns across Eurasia. Sound of Eurasia has a subtitle Constructing a Network Through Voicemail. DJ Sneak will invite improvising musicians and sound artists to engage in their practice through the playing concert at the local venue. He will also invite them to make a conversation, and it is aired on Beuys On website. Okay then, I want to invite the lead associates to join me here. I prepared several questions to each associate to understand their idea behind the program. First one is Dominic. He is working on the topic of Eurasia. So Dominic, please join me.
Hi, Misuki.
Hi, Dominic. How are you?
Very fine, thanks.
Yeah. Why don't you start making the short introduction of yourself first?
Okay. So my name is Dominic Chen. I live in Tokyo right now. I work as a associate professor at the Waseda University. So I'm a teacher and I'm a researcher. My specialty is not history or art history, but I conduct research in information engineering and information theories. But my personal history is that I'm a very mixed person, culturally and ethnically. So I have a very Asian ethnic background, but I was born as a French citizen. So I received a French education from, very young childhood, and I've graduated American University. So I've been receiving education from the Western world in a way. But I'm half Japanese, so I do speak Japanese and French. So these are two of my native tongues. So I've been living and raised as a person in Eurasia on the very eastern extreme and the western extreme. So I guess that's the reason why I'm, very fascinated by this whole theme of Eurasia.
Yeah. I still remember when I invited you to join this project, since you were the first one to raise a hand and showing the strong interest working on the Eurasia. So, but now you just answered. Okay, back to the boys. So then, having said that, I understand that so you are interested in the idea of the Eurasia from your background. Then, how do you find interesting in the boys' utopian visions of the Eurasia? Do you think is is it still valid in a contemporary context in which the global hegemony has rapidly changed? So we are obviously living in a different time from the Beuys that he was active during the Cold War. So
yes, actually, so when you contacted me about this project, I almost felt like, I rethought about this question. And of course, I knew who Joseph Beuys was since before. I was very interested in his idea of social sculpture and, his extended notion of art, et cetera, et cetera. But I didn't know much actually about his work on Eurasia. So basically, I've been wondering why Joseph Beuys, who is a German artist, found this theme of Eurasia and incorporated, many nomadic materials such as felt or like fat or, dog sledges into his own work. And, because it's not very obvious for European artists to relate himself to these kind of, exotic materials. So, but from the perspective of his artistic practices, other curators and art historians have made studies about, his interest in Eurasia. And one fascinating book by Shinya Watanabe, who is a specialist in Joseph Beuys' Eurasian project. He published a book, a very thick book, which is his own PhD thesis. And I learned a lot about, Joseph Beuys' Eurasian project, and also about his collaboration with Namjoon Paik on this actual theme of Eurasia. So his book helped me a lot about for understanding how Beuys has always been interested in this kind of thinking outside of his familiar world of European modernists perspective. But when you think about it, he was not the only European to think about Eurasia that way. So I immediately thought about other Europeans who have been fantasizing about, the mysterious Eurasia, like, Athanasius Kircher in the 17th century or Samuel Coleridge in the 18th century, who have, written poems and other kind of books about this mysterious, East, Eurasian East. So, after I received your question, about this project, I realized that this question about, thinking about Eurasia was bigger than Beuys, actually. So the question become bigger. So, and of course, on my personal level, as I told you earlier, so I have this background of kind of mixed background between East and West. So I also realized that just like Beuys, I've been fantasizing for Eurasia for a long time, since my childhood.
How?
So
Tell me. What was
because
your fantasy of
my
Eurasia?
fantasy, I think we all share, more or less this kind of fantasy about nomadic people in Central Asia, and in Japan, as you may know, there are many novels or like mangas or like movies about the history of those nomadic empires, and and how impressive their territory was, etc., etc. But actually, uh, the more I started to learn about the history of Central Asia and Eurasia for this program, I at the same time, I become more aware that I was quite ignorant about the concrete history of Central Asia. So I think this program is actually a self-exploration of my own ignorance about Central Asian history, but at the same time to consider why are we all being fascinated by this image of the of the people in Central Asia.
Mm. Well, but in fact, it's, the biggest challenge for all of us. Now we cannot travel. So all the
Exactly.
programs we have to do via online communication. So then I'm just wondering, so this kind of, the online communications or online research, perhaps, fantasize Eurasia again, or how we
Mm-hmm.
can kind of avoid, repeating, the
Mm-hmm.
fantasizing and giving the exotic impression,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
on the subject.
Yes, I think that's a really interesting question, and that is a question that I have to tackle during this program. So I think there are two sides to answer your question. So the fantasizing part is actually something I have to face, as a fact, as a historical fact, and as a problem actually, because we've all went through the Orientalism by Said, and the post-colonial discussions about who have the cultural hegemony over the power to write history, right? So so from that perspective, I think it's very important to rewrite or like to add up testimonies and more information coming from the Central Asian people, the Central Asian artists, artisans, and other cultural people. So during my research, I met Selby Jumayeva, who is a specialist of Central Asian arts and culture in both contemporary and traditional contexts. And she kindly accepted to be part of this program as a co-lead associate. So together with her, I will be organizing a kind of information network between Central Asian artisans and artists, and ask them to really express themselves through text, interviews, and other type of creativities.
Okay, could you briefly share what you are going to upload, on the Beuys On Off in coming few months?
Yes, so I'm still preparing and planning still, but basically I'm preparing a list of people in Central Asia to contact, and I'll be starting to talk to them and ask questions to them. And so I think I will have a lot of a transcript of interviews, and also, if possible, of audiovisual materials accompanying those texts. And so that's on the first level. And on the second level, as you mentioned, it's a pity that we can't travel to visit them. But I still want to have some kind of material outcome to this project. So I'm still calculating the cost to send things over Central Asia and getting them back to Japan. But I would try to kind of create a physical network between those artists that I will contact, and to ask them to kind of interact between their cultural representations, or like any other form of creation, and to gather those material outcome in Tokyo, and to have a kind of exhibition at the end of the period.
Okay,
Hopefully.
great. Okay, fingers crossed. Okay, so yeah, I'm looking forward. Looking at the kind of artistic, the map of the Eurasia, which made by you and your associate. Thank you very much, Dominic.
Thank you, Mizuki.
Bye bye. Okay, then the second associate is Sakiko Sugawa from Center for Reproductive Labor. The reasons why I invited Sakiko because she has been working and fighting for the human rights for the reproductive labors, and supporting the domestic workers for many years. I think is that this is some things perhaps Beuys didn't address that much in his theory of economy. So therefore, I expect her practice and her participation might be fill the missing link. And also that I thought it's going to be the update his ideas of the economy by knowing what the Center for Reproductive Labor is doing. So, okay, so then I think then it's better to invite the Sakiko and let her to talk about what they're doing. Okay, Sakiko, please join.
Hello.
Is that okay? Is what I say that? Is that
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay.
Sorry for making a change at the last minute. So first I need to introduce myself, right?
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay.
And you and your friends and fellow colleagues, and what is the Center for Reproductive Labor, by the way?
Okay, perfect. I was actually inspired by how Dominic introduced himself. So I can also talk about my background and how I have come to where I am. And I call myself a cultural worker. and I make livings by translating. And on the side, I guess like I have been engaging with cultural sphere, and I have created spaces, collectives, and structures with my friends in various places in the world. And in the last several years, I have been doing action research on the labor called reproductive labor. And now I think about it, this encounter, encountering this form of labor seems like a fate, because I grew up in Kyoto. I was born and grew up in Kyoto, and I was raised by nursery teacher mother and labor organizer father. And my grandfather was a local Communist Party politician. So what I'm trying to do right now is sort of like I'm combining all of my family family influences in one place, and continuing what they fought, what my family have fought. So listening to Dominic speaking like his cultural heritage and how he grew up, you know, who raised him, like I really wanted to mention my own background. So Misuki asked me to participate, take part of this project. And because like she said, she thought that she wanted to bring different voice and different ideas, which I think the Beuys, when I first heard about this project, I really had to study him. I really had to study what his ideas for economy. And what I discovered is that the anecdote that we shared before, the anecdote, very famous one actually, that he, while he was working for the German military, he was shot to the ground, right? And he was saved by Tartans. Did I pronounce right? And he was wrapped in felt and fat, I think, and he was giving the care that he needed to recover. And that story really struck me because precisely because he used these materials throughout his career as essential materials. But what struck me was that I felt that he mystifies this labor, you know, like he instead of going deep into this labor, what this labor actually represents, he just used that labor and the labor of people who gave him this care. So that the link that I was trying to establish between Joseph Beuys's idea and what we are trying to do as a Center for Reproductive Labor is this, like we using voices, this anecdote, we wanted to actually demystify what this labor is about and the why undervaluation of this labor has been taking place in this society. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. And then that is quite interesting. Before our conversation start, you just said that, you know, then you kind of you cannot answer to my questions, you know, on the slide. But actually, I think so you answered my question already. Wow,
Well,
but right, yeah.
I think that my intention of saying that before was that this connection, like I had to make this connection quite artificially. And Center for Reproductive Labor didn't come about because of Joseph Beuys. Our work, what we do, the politics, how we practice our politics have nothing to do with Joseph Beuys. And the politics that we are trying to communicate and share with the people have been around amongst us and have been around among the theorists, the social movements, of migrant workers or social movements of socialist feminists. And we wanted to bring these voices to the front. We wanted to share their experiences and desires and politics. And so I thought that by criticizing Beuys, I was afraid that I am also giving him too much credit, which I didn't want to, because our ideas are our ideas based on the ideas developed by women before us, socialist feminists before us, anti-colonial struggles before us. So I think what we have to do now in this moment and during this crisis is to bring up these voices that have been erased and the voices that have not been focused. And that's what we are trying to do. And another thing that we like to do is to combine these theories that have been developed by Black feminists, socialist feminists, with our own lived experiences, our own desires, and us as in like people, you know, who are part of Center for Reproductive Labor, migrant movements, undocumented labor movement, these voices that I would like to actually shed light on.
Thank you. Well, well, okay. So by having heard that, could you share then what actually what you guys are doing on taking use of this Beuys On a platform?
So we thought that reproductive labor as a form of labor is a very complex form of labor. To talk about reproductive labor, you cannot avoid talking about feminism. You cannot avoid talking about sexism. You cannot avoid talking about racism. And you cannot escape from Europe's colonial history. You cannot avoid talking about capitalism. So, I mean, you know, like these are the very heavy issues. And we have to really discuss reproductive labor in relation to these heavy subjects. But we don't believe that, you know, you have to have education, you have to have academic background to be able to talk about these issues, because reproductive labor, I mean, it's often called housework or domestic work, is something that everyone has a relationship to. Everyone receives reproductive labor, everyone receives care, and everyone gives actually reproductive labor. So this is something that we all need to be able to talk about. But at the moment, I think the discussion on reproductive labor has been confined in the academic sphere or contemporary art sphere, and they are not understood in accessible way. So I think our role, the role that we like to take is to demystify this form of labor, as I said, and also to make knowledge and information related to this labor widely available, so that everyone can understand, for instance, the relationship between reproductive labor and Europe's history of colonialism. Or people can understand why migrant women heavily occupy the field of domestic work, and why that has been systematic. So it's not just the accident that women of color work in the industry of domestic work. It's not the accident that the men of color work in the food delivery service. There is a reason for that. And so we wanted to show these reasons why this labor has been undervalued, why that has been connected to racism and sexism.
So, could you tell me, dear, how you are making this contents with your fellow colleagues?
Yes, so basically we gathered a lot of questions concerning this form of labor, and we gathered also our lived experiences. So I would like to acknowledge all my comrades and collaborators later in a proper manner, but we are a group of cultural workers, domestic workers, migrant workers, activists, and academia. And we brought our expertise, lived experiences, and desires and dreams to the table. And then we analyzed these questions and came up with answers. For instance, like simple questions like what is reproductive labor? Who receives this labor? And why has it been undervalued? So these are all the questions that we came up with, and also came up with answers. Then,
yes, please.
sorry. And instead of expressing these answers in words, we thought it's important to use visual images. So we asked this amazing illustrator, Laura, to depict these complex issues in illustration. So I'll show you the images in a second, but people will be able to understand the complex issue through images.
Okay, I think it's time is running short. Perhaps you can show the image right now.
But can I then acknowledge all my comrades?
Yes, please do that.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe you can add this late, move to the beginning, maybe. So I would like to.
I think it's I think you can do that now. Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to acknowledge all my beautiful radical thinkers, practitioners who are part of this project. And first and foremost, I would like to give big shout out to Jack and Joy, and the way they organize and the way they lead, the way they build politics has been like very, very inspiring to me. And despite all the odds and despite all the challenges that they face, they make life happen. And I want to cry. And I think they have educated so many people, including myself. And I'm so grateful that I get to work with them. And another person that I would like to acknowledge is Marika. Marika is also part of the group, and she's a lifelong activist, and she has been always on the ground working for the rights of migrant workers and undocumented workers. And her work is not always visible, but we see her work, what she does. And she has been also my teacher. And the other people that I like to acknowledge include Rana, Rosa, and Eileen. And these are beautiful, beautiful people, radical, loud, and eloquent. And the politics that we build together are truly inspiring. And with them, I feel like we can create this, we can send and communicate our messages. So they're fantastic people. And Mary and Agnes, they are a little bit far away. They are based in the US, but nevertheless, they have been always part of the research process, and their precision and keen eyes for words have been so helpful for us. And last and not least, but the Laura, the illustrator that I mentioned, the images that she makes are just phenomenal and so brilliant. And it's very difficult to depict these complex issues, but her talent with her talent, she did an amazing job, and I'm so grateful that I get to work with her. I think I mentioned everyone.
Okay, thank you very much for introduction. It's just really a shame, and we don't have all of them today. But I think it's I could see there how much efforts and time and energy were spent to make your program. Yeah, thank you very much. So the last is I want because of that I think is I want to introduce what your your deliverables as many as possible because that's important,
Yeah. Okay, so I'll show you the images very quickly.
Yeah.
Can you see?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the first post that we are going to post on the Instagram. Oh, sorry, I forgot to say that we're using Instagram as a platform. And this is the first post that explains who we are, what we do. So these are the messages that we like to share. And another post that asks the question of why or who has popularized this term reproductive labor and in what context. So we wanted to give information of Marxist feminist analysis in the 1970s and how they discovered reproductive labor, and also their analysis within the capitalist economy. So because reproductive labor or domestic work is often understood within a private context. So people often say, oh, it's a matter of dividing tasks or matter of labor, division of labor, but it's actually the capitalist and the state that exploit women at home, providing free labor. So they they actually demanded the money wages for housework. And another question is, what kind of image do people have of reproductive labor? And you can see how reproductive labor have very opposing, contrasting perceptions. So we can also uncover why we have these contrasting perceptions. And another one, the question asked, there must be a logic in deciding what's valued, productive, and creative. And we ask these questions because people often say, it's dirty, unskilled, anyone can do this labor. But it's actually not true because the value system that we have in the current economy is corrupt, illogical, and glorifies the violence. So we wanted to make a comparison between reproductive labor and some of the jobs that are considered productive, skilled, creative, smart. And these jobs that are considered creative and skilled are actually the jobs that kill and destroy the planet.
Okay.
So we wanted to make
Sorry, I hate saying that, but I also have to the time management. Because I think it's all the technical stuff is working, through the certain time. So I think
no problem.
Sorry to say that. But when can expect to get access to your account on Instagram? When are you?
It's on already, but we're gonna start posting from early April.
Okay, so do you share, could you share the account name?
Center for Reproductive Labor.
Center for Reproductive Labor. So that is account name. Okay. Yeah. So looking forward. Thank you very much.
Sorry for taking so much time. I'm sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you, Sakiko. Then I want to introduce Gruna Lad. From Kyrgyzstan. Actually, I haven't met this beautiful artist couple before. As all of us said, that there's a challenge in this Beuys On projects. Actually, we cannot travel. So then, to find out the associate was also challenging for me. But in the other day, I did here just doing the research on the internet, and found out very beautiful article written by the Gulnara Mlat, the artist as a gardener. So I really wanted to invite them. Then I want to know what they are thinking about the ecology through their artistic practice. So please let me invite Gulnara Mlat. Please, Gulnara Mlat, please join me. Hello.
Hi.
Thank you for waiting. Okay, so yeah, please make your brief introduction first.
Who will talk first?
Actually, we have very classical education, and I graduated Surikov Institute in Moscow in graphic department. And by the way, my diploma work was political poster dedicated to Hiroshima.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yes, and I won the second prize in the international poster competition in Moscow in 1987.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is a kind of the fate, yeah, we're gonna work on this project, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, my name is Murat, and I also graduated in Russia in Mukhina Academy in St. Petersburg in sculptural department. And of course, we, as Gulnara said, we have very classical art education, and also we dedicate most of our time in 90s to work with our skills as a sculptor and printmaking. And Gulnara also teach me to make printmaking, to work with it. And we also participate many times in different biennales of graphics in Ljubljana and in different countries. So it's, but later, I think in the end of 90s, we slightly changed our media and start to work together with Gulnara as an artistic duo. Not because this media was like environmentally friendly, friendlier than just to make some objects but I think this media was most relevant for that time because the situation in post-Soviet countries was rapidly changed, and a new media of photographs or video was very convenient to fix all these rapidly changed situations. And since that time, I think we have been working with new media and working still now.
And I want to say that our beginning work as a duo, maybe it was since the first art expedition to Siberia. We organized it, and during 40 days, it was, we visit Buryatia, Tuva, Siberia, also this.
It's actually we
Altai,
yeah, Altai.
And it's really huge territory.
Mm-hmm.
And we from this we collect a lot of video materials, and one of the maybe famous artwork, it is Trans-Siberian Amazons, which was in Venice Biennale in 2005.
And it was about woman traders who,
yes,
who work as a traders, who began to work as a traders after the collapse of Soviet Union, when it was a new situation and a new liberal economy came after the collapse of communistic regime. And it was like a huge movement of this kind of women traders in all huge area of Eurasia. And this topic and this theme was extremely interesting for us because we met during this expedition and trip to Siberia, a lot of these traders in the trains and the buses and everywhere.
Okay, well then I prepared the two questions, particularly to you because you're the artist. The artists in general, the people who create something, right? So, but then looking back, the Beuys, their practice like 7,000 org. He installed the 7,000 org together with the stones and so now asking the citizens to participate for the planting across the cities. Then eventually the big installations in front of the Friedrichium disappeared. But yes, and then now all of us know this, that we are facing the crisis of the environment. Global warming and also, the pollutions. And, some of the performers actually stop using the airplane for travel. So, and the museums also, they started to be conscious about the CO2 emittance as well. So, well, yeah, how do you think about this? How artists can to cope with this the sustainability efforts? So how can artists justify their productions when we are knowing we are surrounded with a huge amount of products? Do we need any more products and arts? So, and how are you thinking? How do you cope with this the planetary crisis through your practice?
Who will answer?
Actually, we are very familiar to the idea of voice of social sculpture. And we also work as, we are founder artist NGO and works with the contemporary art and try to develop contemporary art in Central Asia. And one of the maybe main our topics was, and now we still work with this, it is making a social sculpture among our community, yes. And more than 10 years we are established. It is not an official school, but it is, for us, it is like a project of School for Contemporary Art. And in this way, we try to teach the youngest to see more, wider. And one of the very interesting, how to say, our top, when we, in our school, when we have them dedicated to Joseph Beuys and about the 7,000 oaks, it was extremely gives to our students encouraged to do something, to make some activity. And we established Trash Festival. And
yes, and talking about its idea of Trash Festival came spontaneously after this discussion about Joseph Beuys' 7,000 oaks. And it was for all students was very, very have many energy to do something for the city, for the country. And we decided to make something in the most polluted area in Bishkek. It's Osh Bazaar. It's huge marketplace, and it's most polluted place in Bishkek. And during preparation for this festival, we called it Trash Festival. Students fundraised. They tried to. They worked with their own artworks. They tried to communicate with people, with community in this Osh Bazaar, and tried to communicate with the administration of the bazaar, and made them to clean this river near the bazaar, which was completely polluted by trash, and several trucks of this trash they just excavate from the place. And during this festival, our students, they produced some artworks made of plastic bottles or plastic. They made some clothes and make défilé clothes made by plastic bags, plastic bags, and it was and this festival interact very much local community, and it was very interesting when next day I came to this place near the river, and to this bridge on the river. I saw one woman who explained to one young person that it's important to clean up this place. It's important to save this place clean. And it was so nice for me to listen this kind of discussion after this festival. And it means that this festival has some kind of impact to the mind of people, to this place. And I think it's one of the reasons why many of our former students now try to work with the environmental pollution, with the feminist agenda, with many relevant issues in Kyrgyzstan.
It's quite interesting because you said that most of you guys received a very academic, art educations.
Yes.
Yeah, but this seems to be the totally kind of, you seems to stop painting or making the sculpture rather than you are creating the situations,
Yes.
very open situation to not only for the art students but the communities to address the urgencies in their surroundings.
Yeah.
Mm.
And by the way, I want to say that this autumn it will be Trash Festival number 3. And
I like the name, Trash Festival number 3.
Yes, but it's actually it was number 2 called Make a Forest. And but now it's really I think it will be great because it's going to be on the dam.
City rubbish dam, yeah.
And we have one video art. It's dedicated for this rubbish dump, and maybe we can show later on the website.
Actually, it's a big problem of environmental and air pollution in Bishkek city because of using coal during the winter time. And power station in Bishkek also use the coal to produce energy. And one of the most impact for this also from this rubbish dam because it's also constantly burning, and nobody can stop it because it's due to fermenting all this trash, and it's produced very poisoned gas methane. And it's getting very big problem for the local people who live around this rubbish dam because it's mostly poorest part of the community society, and it's mostly migrants from different part of the Kyrgyzstan, and they tried to build the clay houses in this area, and they're really poisoned by this air of this dam.
I saw their videos when Beuys came to visit Japan. The last final destination he visited before going back to Germany was Botanical Garden. Said he received a lot of the inspiration from nature. So can I ask you what is nature for you? How you get the inspiration from nature?
Actually, our real belief, it is paganistic belief. It is very close to nature, and we believe still for the spirit of all values, all the mountains, and if value have own like a master of this place. So of course it is belief of our ancestors. Now it's just became
it's not really popular now because it's most of the Kyrgyz now it's became Muslims. And
also capitalistic new generation. It's just see only money. So it is very difficult in this case to follow our ancient tradition. But of course, it is even we are now live in suburb. We more than 20 years ago we escaped town, and now we live in the some kind of village near the town, and we have own place to try on garden. And actually it used to be some kind of trash place.
Also rubbish
dam, yes. and it is very difficult to renovate this the earth, the ground, because it is very we have to do a lot of humus and just to make alive this place. But now we did it, but maybe it also takes time more.
Yes, it takes time. Yeah, and on the Beuys On projects, as long as I heard from you, so you're going to make the several actions together with your students, also their the school, or alternative art school. Could you share what you are going to do a little bit?
Actually, we are going to work together with a new platform called Bishkek School for Contemporary Art, and it formed by our former students last year in May, and they made several actions already. They produced 2 zines about different issues in Bishkek. And one of the issues it's pandemic in Kyrgyzstan, and how people survive in pandemic time, and what artists can do in this kind of situations. And during this Beuys On-Off project, we collaborate together and work in different issues like environmental pollution in the city, and or about eco-friendly approach in building in Bishkek or in different parts of Kyrgyzstan. Also, it's very I think important for us, it's communication with rural places, because especially last year when was in October, was a lot of riots in Bishkek due to a very dirty election in Kyrgyzstan. There was a lot of intellectuals raise the question, the issue that we have the city people from the city have no any connection with the people who have who live in the villages, in rural places, and they have no any idea what they're doing there, what kind of problem they have. And we have some experience to work with in the villages, with school children, to teach them some approach in photographs, or to make their school newspaper, and to try to react what is going on in the village, and to write something about critical about some issues in the villages. And it was interesting for our school children, and also very interesting for teachers who never thought that the pupil can write this kind of articles. So it's also
Okay.
yeah.
That's exciting. So then we can hear the the different voices from your collaborators.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So then from different angle. Wow. And actually, so your first post was also very interesting to learn what's kind of economic power, the changing and giving the impact in the urban scape. Yeah, so that's if the people can get access the Beuys on the website, they can get access to your first article. Okay, thank you very much. So looking forward, the your actions to see in the coming
Thank you
months.
very
Thank you,
much.
Saki.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, so moving on to the final program under the Free International University 2.0, that is educations. Please go to the next slide. Yeah. So for the education, I invited Taeun Choi and Junyoung Ma. So both of them are working engaged in education. So but it's a different angles. The Jonghyun is working for the university, and the Taeyun is setting up the school for poetic computation. That is alternative school in New York, co-founded with his fellow colleagues. So I want to invite them to see how, what is a problem in education or the institutional education today. So please join Taeun and the Jonghyun. Hello, thank you for waiting.
Hello.
So yeah, you guys are now based in the different cities, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So why don't we start, the short introduction to yourself? Perhaps you can start, Taeun.
Hi, I'm Taeyun. I'm an artist. I'm in my Seoul studio. I lived in United States and New York for some time before relocating back in Korea. And I identify as an artist and an organizer.
Okay. Okay, and then dear Ma-san. Yeah.
Hi, my name is Jonghyun. I was born in Korea and raised in Seoul. And I was originally educated in English literature and psychology, then moved on to the computer vision, and I won the master's degree in engineering. And then there I met a Japanese artist whose name was Masaki Fujita, and I came to Japan to become his student in 2007, so a long time ago. And so even though I'm teaching and researching in contemporary art and media, my own education is rather short, limited to my own doctoral course. But since then, I was based in Tokyo. And now I'm in Osaka.
How did you get know each other?
I think we had some mutual friends in Japan and Korea, and I think we had a similar interest about media and education. And although our formal appointments are slightly different, I actually found a lot of commonalities between Jungyeon's teaching and relationship with the students and what I was trying to do. So I actually do not see the institution and alternative as very different, because as we will explain, even inside of an institution, you could be quite experimental. And even inside of an experimental space, you could be very bureaucratic and boring. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, now I also prepared the two questions to you, but well, it is depends on you. You're gonna start answering by answering the questions, or you're going to talk about what you are going to do.
We somehow merged our answers to our introductions and plans. So let me, please ask me the question.
Okay. Do you think Beuys was a good educator? If so, why do you think? If not, what do you envision as a good educator?
Definitely yes, I think. But it is simply because he believed in the creative potential of not just the students, but all human beings and their intuition, inspiration, and imagination. Before we move on to Taeyeon's answer, let me briefly introduce our team. The education part of Beuys On is directed by two co-leading associates, myself and Taeyeon Chen. We are working with...
sorry, my mispronunciations of his name.
Oh, no, it's okay. We are working with a program associate, Jaemin Shin, who was right behind Taeyeon just a minute ago. Hi, Jaemin, in South Korea. In collaboration with three guest associates, Gulnara Kasmalieva and Muratbek Dyumaliev in Kyrgyzstan, whom you just met, and Aigerin Kaper in Kazakhstan. Gulnara and Muratbek mentioned that they will collaborate with Bishkek School of Contemporary Art, founded by their former students. And Aigerin is an independent curator and founder of the creative communication platform called Artcom. In this collaboration, we want to learn more about an informal school called Art Collider she initiated. And we are currently preparing a series of online seminars titled Summer School of Unlearning, which will be held between July and September. It is partly inspired by Beuys's artistic education, which I'm very interested in, and also by our experience as artists, writers, teachers, working in academia, especially during the COVID-19. Taeyeon, please tell us more about the notion of unlearning.
Yeah, thank you. So, as Jungyeon said, our topic and process centers around the concept of unlearning. Simply put, it's asking how we learn and what we learn. In a more broader context, it's about asking questions about how knowledge is produced and if there are systems of oppression that is related to that, if there are systems of violence that are created with the knowledge. And practically speaking, we just want to focus on reflecting how we have learned in our lifetime as a student and also as a teacher now. And we want to do it with the participants from 4 different communities. And Mizuki prepared this question of if Beuys was a good educator or not. And I've been thinking about this for the last month.
Yeah, so you agree with Jungyeon?
Not exactly, but I think I'm very hesitant to answer that question because based on what I read and hear from some of Beuys's students, he sounds like a really intimidating and very dominating teacher. But on the other hand, he was teaching, he made a generation of a really influential artist, especially in Europe. And a lot of young artists continue to be inspired by him, including myself as a young student. So if the metric of a good teacher is creating influential or important artists, yeah, of course he's a great teacher. So I am just a little complicated about that.
Yeah, I didn't, I intentionally, don't use the wording of teacher. I use it instead. I use educator.
Well, I think he was performing teaching. I think he was really like a stage person. So if educator is theatrics, yeah, he's a great actor. And like the content of which he taught or the ways in which he taught seems to be very questionable, along with his identity and his ethics and his politics at large. So that is just to say that I think he's worth unlearning, which is to question him and revisit him. And thinking about why he is seemed so important in especially the Western art history.
Yeah, I think as I said, it is very interesting point. What Taeyun said that he was performing teacher. That is very interesting. But as long as you are given the kind of title as a professor or a teacher, and when you go to this classrooms, you are the somehow you're forced to be on stage, and then students are expecting to learn from you, and then that environment made you to perform, right? So in your summer school, how do you deconstruct this kind of the relationship?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I used to joke that teaching is mostly like being like a salesperson and also a preacher and a comedian all at the same time. But mostly the comedic part seems to be the most effective of engaging with the students. And I think there may be people who are really intelligent and knowledgeable about their subject matter, but they cannot teach. And there are people who know very little or just enough, but they can teach very well because they can communicate. So I think you can learn from both people. I think it's about challenging who gets to be the teacher. So something that I think is relevant for us is that everybody could become a teacher, and there's a less hierarchy between the professor and then the student. But it's a little controversial with Beuys because I think as much as he advocated for that idea, he did want to be in control. He was very charismatic and created this myth around himself as a professor. So, yeah.
But do you have any kind of methodology you're trying to introduce your summer school then?
Not quite methodology, but we learned from the year 2020 when we had to shift very drastically into online classes. I had to do some classes for large classes. We had to record it and provide it as a on-demand type. And some in some classes we did hybrid form and with live classes, with the small numbers. And I was questioning to myself, especially as for the on-demand type of classes, why don't they just take the world best scholar or professor, and all the students all over the world share the classic. And I realized that the university is not just for the place to get knowledge, but for the relationships with different people, and where we encounter very different people, sometimes as a professor and students, or teacher and students, or students and students as friends. And thanks to the basic format of Zoom, we are now seeing we have same scale. We don't have hierarchy in the size of the screens. And I really enjoyed it in my live classes. And we will use this kind of online meeting platform for our summer school, which will make it possible to share the merit of these equal, how can I say, somehow, equal relationships.
Yeah, I think that's really the key, is that Chongyeon kindly invited me to her class last year when most classes went online very suddenly. And I was able to meet some of her students from Japan, but also located in other places in the world. So, and we talked about the relationship that we are missing because of the COVID-19. And I think people go to schools to meet other people. I think that human relationship is really key in making education possible and worthwhile. So in our program, we are focusing on small but very intimate connection between the community members in 4 different cities. And we're hoping that those 4 community can connect over the online seminar. Beuys had a much more open-ended and open access approach to his teaching, at least in writing that we see, such as that he's quite famous for lecturing and letting people just come into his class and just being part of the conversation. We thought about doing that, but we realized that online spaces are not as safe as walking into a museum, and it doesn't have the context. So rather than exposing people to wider public, we want to start very small, build a trusting and friendship between the participants first, and then open up at the end. So at the end of the session, we hope to have this graduation ceremony where the participants from the 4 nodes will join and share what they have learned and teach each other. And hopefully that's the process of unlearning, because I did not know anything about Eurasia, like zero. Like I had no idea of the names of the places, the demographics, the politics, economy, or anything. So I'm unlearning a lot about Eurasia and how it relates to me living in Korea now. Like I'm noticing a lot more Eurasian communities here who are immigrants or working and different diaspora. And I'm also recognizing that Korean diaspora in places like Kazakhstan, there's a long history of the Korean migrant workers there. So it doesn't seem as far as I thought in the beginning.
Oh, that's also interesting. I also didn't know there is some, the communities in each in both Korean and also the Central Asia countries. So, well, I understand that it's quite important. You're going to you need to set up the security, space for for the students and the teachers. No, it's all students. There's no teachers, right? in your camp, and exchange the view and opinion freely. But on the other hand, I'm just curious. How do I know what you what is the people in the camp online? How do I get know their kind of the process of, or what's going on in your camp?
Yeah, we are planning to have a blog posting on the Beuys On and Off project, and it will be written by us and then the students and edited collaboratively. I'm excited to create some graphics for these essays, so cartoons accommodating the pieces. And I'm hoping that the effect of the projects are visible through our individual practices, such as that I am hoping that my geographical understanding becomes a bit more wider after this project, and hoping the same with the participants from Eurasia. And hopefully the final event captures it, but I'm still not sure how best to do it, because the Zoom has limitation, and also everyone who's participating have a quite busy life and practices. So just thinking a lot more about the depth of the work rather than the width of the work right now. So how do we identify the participants in local spaces? So I'm going to start by inviting some of my Korean colleagues and young artists who have a different view about education. And we are hoping to curate this group and start to have a conversation soon.
Okay. So yeah, looking forward. I think as a then in the future, it will be nice if you can realize the real camp and a meeting in person. Thank you very much. Yeah, okay. Okay. So finally, I want to invite the lead associate from the Sound of Eurasia program. I invite the DJ Sniff for the Sound of Eurasia program. Needless to say, the performance was one of the important practices in Joseph Beuys. And when he came to Japan in 1984, he staged a performance with the Namjoon Park in Soges Hall. So therefore, I wanted to make the program something related to sound or performance. I have known the name of DJ Sniff. Actually, we met each other when the DJ Sniff was working as working as a professor of the Hong Kong University of the City University of Hong Kong. But we didn't have the time. We didn't have the opportunity to work together. So this project, I feel I'm fortunate. Finally, I had the chance to work with him. So let me invite DJ Sniff to join me. Yeah, on the conversation. Welcome.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you okay? It's been a long time. To talk. I'm just the entertainment. I'm the DJ. So
thank you. Yeah.
I'm
You can
the
notice
icing of the cake.
my brain cell has stopped rotating. Yeah, but thank you very much for joining the project. And yeah, since also I'm really excited to listening to the sounds you're collecting from your friends and associates, although most of them perhaps you have never ever met. Yeah, but well, anyway, so that I want to. So why don't you start introducing yourself first?
Mm-hmm. So my name is DJ Sniff. My real name is Takuro Mizuta Lipit. I'm a musician, turntablist, educator, translator, father, do numerous things. But my main practice is in performing, and I make my own instruments. And I think this invitation to this project comes largely to my curating work, which I've also always done parallel to my musical work. And one of the larger projects that I did was called AMF, which was a music festival of experimental musicians across Southeast Asia and East Asia. And the concept of this was to bring artists together for the first time and have them play together in different formations. So my role in this project is to approach voice through performance and sound, but also finding and connecting new artists in the region of Central Asia. So yeah, that's how I see that. That's how I've been trying to pursue this project.
Yeah. Yes, as you can see in my questions, so the Beuys, also he used the vinyl as a media, and he produced the many vinyls and sell with a quite reasonable price at that time. So yeah, but so now we started getting getting the sounds from digital platform. So I also used to have the lot of the CD, the collections and a cassette tape, but those kind of the materials somehow disappeared from my apartment. So, but well, you're the turntable player and musicians. How do you see the significance of the vinyls, so today, and how it is different from the time of the voice? And you also, I'm sure that you also have the view on how voice use the vinyl. Obviously he was not musicians.
Well, for me, my background, my musical education all comes from DJing and going to record stores and going to clubs when I was younger. And music was always transferred through vinyl records, and the practice and the performance was always through records and the technology involving it. And so whenever I approach projects, it's always through this physical medium of record or the turntable or what plays it. With a voice, it's interesting because he his later work is a lot about sort of opening up artwork and sort of democratizing it, sort of breaking it out of sort of the institutional structures. And his performances were almost kind of cliche in a way of him to make money, for him to pursue larger projects. And the vinyl record for him kind of symbolizes this, because most of them are documentations of his performances, but when you listen to them, the recordings are very bad. And so sonically they have very little value, but the value is in its objecthood, or it's as an object. And so because it's an object, it was traded and sold and sort of becoming this art object, which was this kind of ridiculous value. So it's kind of contrasted between his actual art practice. So these things really interest me. Also, when this project came to me, the typical way I would pursue building a network with artists that I've never met would be through traveling, right? Travel there, play concerts, and build a relationship, and then collaborations are born. But now with COVID, I couldn't do this. And during this period, I had to think about what is it that I was carrying with me when I travel? And can this be still accomplished through other means, like how we're talking in Zoom, or through objects, right? And one of the things that I realized is that I bring sort of personal experiences and stories. And these are the bonds, and these are the things that connect. And records and also sound are things that attach memories and personal stories, right? So, there's a particular song, and this song is been printed onto millions of records, but we each have personal stories to it and attachments to it. Or sounds, certain sounds, like a sound of a bicycle, a chime, or a sound of a kettle boiling. These are generic sounds, but we all have personal associations to it. And so when I think about what I do when I travel, I play music, but the bonds that are built are never through talking about music. We're always talking about something else. And it's actually very uncool and lame to talk about music, because we do the music, but we talk about other things. And a lot of these are based on personal stories. So I was interested in trying to embody these into an object of a record and send these to places. So this project is evolving through the physicality of the record and sort of the memories and stories that could be attached to it. So what I'm doing with this project is that I'm making 3 records, which are voice recordings of artists from Southeast Asia. And these are going to be sent to artists in Central Asia with instructions to ask for them to provide certain materials. These materials will be posted online. And I imagine this not so much as an art project, but kind of building a foundation for a future art project, a foundation for a future concert that we could play. So it's really about getting to know people, you know, trying to visualize this building of a network. And also it's kind of a wordplay as well, because Beuys in Japanese is the same pronunciation as voice. And also in the earlier associates talks, this kind of giving a personal voice has been somehow dubbed with Beuys as well. So there's kind of an importance of the personal voice in this. And so instead of capturing Eurasia or Joseph Beuys, which has become a huge entity, trying to build a network or build connections from the ground up, from individual voices, and see what can be born out of that after this project.
I also heard you are actually trying to buy the voice performance records.
Yeah, so that's the other part of the project. Like I said, the voice records are very weird objects. There's a couple that are traded in the art market, and there's others that are sort of almost like bootlegs, that are very poor quality. But even then, they're sold for more than regular records. However, all the content of this is available on YouTube. So somebody has posted all these, so you could listen to the content, but these are circulating, or they're actually not circulating, because they become collector items because of its as an art piece. So I'm also trying to collect these records. I'm trying to go on auction sites and contacting collectors to buy these records. And I want to put these back into circulation. I want to, because for me, records only should exist through its listening, or through its scratching, or through its damaging. And they shouldn't be just in somebody's shelf. So I'm trying to collect these records. I want to make a library or donate it eventually at the Goethe Institute of Tokyo, so people could listen to them, but also I want to circulate them as scores. So part of the concert that I'm planning to host is to build scores of voices performances just by listening to the record. Because I think a lot of voices performances were provocative at the time, but you know, those meanings change over time. And so to do the same things is a different context, but to recreate it just through sound still kind of interests me. And then if I can make a score from this, then the record as an object and the score together, I feel like could be circulated amongst this network that I've built in Central Asia as kind of a trigger or a starting point for new collaborations, and kind of give voice a new meaning, especially to its records, which I think should be listened to and used.
And how do you start your programs? Do you are you going to start making some the sound performance by yourself, or?
So for this, yeah. So on the project website, my section is mostly sound files, sound recordings that are podcasts or field recordings made. And a lot of these will be interviews with the new artists that I find, but also I'm planning to sort of kind of do commentaries on voice records. And because the process of building a score, I wanted to be kind of an oral score in a way, sort of through description. So I thought of sort of doing these listening sessions. Copyright is a big issue with working with voice. And I think with music is the same. So I probably can't post the actual record, but I could post what I think about them.
Yeah, but I also feel that you're trying to develop the new way of the composing the sounds and the music. Yeah.
No,
okay,
definitely.
exciting. So looking forward to hearing listening to all the sounds and collected in the different regions and the country and the cities. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. So everyone's please turn on your camera, showing your face, and please move to the next slide. Okay. Okay, so we are missing some of, okay. I think perhaps this is someone our lead associate forgot they have to turn the sharp again, but okay, then thank you very much for okay, everyone, great. Okay, so then some of the people's missing is like yes, like the Sakiko's fellow colleagues from the Center for Reproductive Labors, that they also work as a kind of lead associates, and also Taeyun and Jongyon's, the colleagues, and also the Dominic's, the co-lead associate. But thank you very much for sharing, so your ideas, and also the answering to my questions. So then, and thank you very much for listening and watching this opening talks. As you can see, we are still in a kind of the organic phase, but making the very exciting contents all together from the different angles. So please tune with Beuys On website. And all programs will be regularly uploaded if no one's, the cost, the break the deadline. So, and also looking forward the listening to your the response and the comments and on what we are going to do. So thank you very much. And this project is going to continue until the end of November. So please keep watching. Thank you. Okay, and thank you very much for all participations.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.